Hocus Pocus by Pegasus Rescue Brigade. Chapter 14. Lucid, what are you doing here? Clardy asked, raising an eyebrow. I thought Mom said you were away on business until after we went back to school. I was, Lucid said, grinning. Dad and I were working on the same show, actually, but we had enough ponies available to handle the last performance. Since they could get by on me without me on this one, I figured I'd come home early and see if I could catch you before you return to Canterlot. Clardy blinked. Then, what was with the flashy entrance? Lucy giggled. That was me, seeing if I could impress your friends. The mayor turned to Dinky and the other falls. Speaking of which, I don't believe we've met, she continued, waving a hoof at them. I'm Lucid, new vice president of Mirage Effects Corporation, a company that uses magic to create illusions and other special effects used to enhance live performances or celebrations and ceremonies. I'm also Clarity's older sister, of course. And you are? I'm Dinky Doo, Dinky answered with a nod. And the ponies behind me are Honeydew and Scuffle. These friends have been hanging out with me pretty much since the year has began, Clardy admitted. Dinky and Honeydew are also my roommates, so we've gotten pretty close. And we've heard about you, of course, Honeydew added, venturing out from behind Dinky. A lot of ponies at the academy know you pretty well. Lizard flushed slightly and chuckled, rubbing the back of her head with a forehoof. Oh, well, I was last year's valedictorian, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the teachers bring me up now and then. There are plenty of students who remember you, too, Scuffle said. I'm sure you remember my brothers, Scorch and Frosty, in the year below you. Lizard rolled her eyes. Oh, you're their brother, she asked, pausing to examine Scuffle again, as if she didn't believe it. They always were a bit, Yeah, they're jerks. Scuffle finished for her, laughing. You're better than them, though, Dinky cut in, giving Scuffle a friendly nudge. Marginally, Honeydew added under her breath, earning an indignant yet playful glare from Scuffle. Clardy, however, didn't look as amused as her friends. Yeah, everyone remembers you, all right, she said to Lucid, working a hoof against the carpet in agitation. Hardly a week goes by where a professor doesn't mention you at least once. Lucid raised an eyebrow. You sound a little less than enthused all of a sudden, Clarity, the mayor said, concerned. Is something wrong at school? What? No! Everything's fine, Clarity said quickly. There's nothing wrong with ponies remembering a successful student. Lucid gave Clarity a level stare. There's more to it than that. I can hear it in your voice. No, really, Clarity argued. There's nothing. Dinky nudged Clarity. Come on, the failure objected. You can at least tell Lucid what keeps happening with the professors. You are the one who always supports talking things out, Honeydew added, and Scuffle nodded in assent. It's not a big deal, though, Clarity argued, turning back to her friends. It's just a little, disheartening sometimes. Oh, so there is a problem, Lucy said. Well, I know just what to do about that. Lucy's horns glowed brightly. Suddenly, a bighorn's futon was carted out of thin air. Dinky, who had never seen any pony but Twilight conjure large objects, raised her eyebrows surprised. Lucy sat down on the newly formed furniture and patted the spot next to her with a forehoof. Come on, sit down and tell me what's bothering you, she coaxed. Clarity glanced between her friends, then gave an exasperated sigh and hopped up next to Lucid, looking in the air and visiting uncomfortably. I guess your legacy at school is, well, making things a little tough for me this time. My legacy, Lucid asked, placing a forehoof under her chest. What do I have to do with this? Oh, Clarity said, a little bitterly. Just the fact that all the professors adored you, and I'm stuck trying to fill your horseshoes all the time. There was a second's silence. Clarity bit her lip and looked into Lucid's surprised eyes. sorry, she mumbled, looking away. That was uncalled for. It's not your fault. You're just so darn perfect I can't live up to you. Now, hold on a second there, Listen said slaringly, grabbing Cardi's head, turning it back towards hers. Are you seriously calling me perfect just because I can do a hoofful of advanced spells? Well, Cardi said, your grades were some of the highest the Academy's seen in the last decade, weren't they? You even discovered a spell or two last year. Now old professor thinks I'm going to be able to do that. And who says you can't? Lucid asked heatedly. Of course I know more magic than you. I've had 5 years of schooling, and you've had less than 1. By the time you're my age, you could be just as accomplished as I am. But what if I'm not? Cardi asked. This isn't even about jealousy or anything. You're super smart, and I'm happy for you. But if everybody thinks I'm just as amazing, and it turns out I'm not, would I just look like a disappointment? Lucid frowned. Only if you put all your self-worth in grades, she answered. So what if you get a B on an exam every now and then? It's not the end of the world. You've got plenty of great qualities besides your smarts. Clardy thought about it for a moment. But if I'm not as smart as you, I'll never be quite as good at magic, right? She asked. Dinky, what's that line from your beginner's magic guide that you like so much? Magic is limited only by the strength of the mind and the passion of the heart, Dinky recited. Exactly, Clardy cried. If my mind isn't as strong as it could be, my magic is going to suffer. Listen, snored. If that phrase is true, Clardy, then you're destined to be a much greater magician than I am someday. Clardy blinked. Wait, why? Because I know you, Lucid said plainly. Even if you're not a straight-A student, you're plenty talented. But I think the more important part here is the other half of the phrase. The greatest unicorns of all time were not the smartest ones. They were the ones who set out with great enthusiasm to discover, invent, and use magic however they could to make Equestria a better place. The passionate ones! Lucid paused and gestured to Dinky and the other foals. Look here, you already made 3 friends who seem to really care about you. Do you know how many friends I made in my first year at the Academy? None. Because I was too busy being a boring little filly that did nothing but study all day. You, on the other hand, are adventurous, outgoing, and just a pleasure to be around, really. You've got this sort of fire in you when it comes to magic, and it burns brighter in you than most anybody I know. So don't envy my smarts. I'm the one who should envy your spirit. You're the one of the most passionate fillies I've ever met. Cardi's eyes were wide. Her ears were flat against her head, and her mouth hung open a bit, an expression that could only be described as wonder. Do you mean all of that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucid nodded, smiling at her sister. She's right, Scuffle said suddenly, stepping forward. You're practically like the leader of our little group. We've all had our share of hard times. Somehow, you're always the one who knows how the best to help each of us get through them. If you hadn't kept trying, I might still be how I was the day we met, trying to avoid everybody I meet. I do add, that's the kind of what I was hoping you realized if you talked to Lucid, Dinky admitted. You shouldn't undervalue yourself, Cardi. You're every bit as amazing as your sister, in your own ways. Cardi was not an easy pony to shake up, but for once, tears formed in her eyes. She squeezed him shut and snuggled into Lucid's coat. The mare wrapped a foreleg around her little sister and snuzzled her mane. Thanks, sis, Cardi managed. I'll thank you all, actually. I won't let the professors get under my skin with that anymore. Good, Lucid said softly. Glad I can help. Now, I think it's time for you 4 to hit the hay. You've all got a train to catch tomorrow, if I recall correctly. Cardi sniffled and hopped off Lucid's futon. You're right, she said, wiping her eyes with a foreleg. It's a shame we didn't get to see more of you over the break, though. Oh, don't worry, Lucid said, switching her tail playfully, as she stood up for the conjure futon. The term will be over before you know it. Study hard, but don't forget to keep that passion alive while you're at it. Grinning, Cardi rose to her high heels and hugged her sister. Lucy waved goodbye and lit her horn, and gone in another flash of red. Dinky hadn't thought it possible, but Cardi managed to be even more peppy than usual the following morning. Caught up in her good mood, the others found themselves extra excited as well, transforming their morning into a whirlwind activity that left them all packed and waiting on the train platform with time to spare. For whatever reason, the return trip to Celestia's Academy seemed to take much less time. Dinky and her friends were even able to get a good night's sleep during the overnight portion of the trip. The next morning, the falls watch as the mountain containing the Academy's subterranean station came into view. "Hey, it was great spending the week with you three," Scuffle said, as the time came for the ponies to head to their respective residence towers. "I'll see you girls in class this week, okay?" Dinky nodded. "Yep, see you tomorrow." The girls entered the tower and were immediately greeted by Sparkler's usual glower. The overseer said nothing, but watched them pass by with a serious expression. It was Sunday, so there were no classes. The fillies spent the afternoon playing on the grounds instead. Upon arriving back at the dorm after dinner, Dinky noticed a sheet of smooth, professional-looking paper tied up with a blue ribbon resting on her pillow. "What's this?" she asked aloud, trying to glance at her roommates instead of expecting them to know. "Somebody must have dropped it off while we were at dinner." With a quick flourish of magic, she undid the little bow and quickly read the note. "Hey, you, Clarity," she called. "You might want to see this." "To the esteemed Miss Doo, I would like to commend you for bringing this new information about the pony you called Sunbeam to me. I have sent it with my sister, and we have explained the duties and patrol routes of the guards on the Academy grounds. As of the date of this message writing, shortly before your return to the Academy, no further evidence has been found, but searches will continue regularly. I recommend you stay safe and report any further suspicious incidents. Princess Luna." "Well, that's a relief," Hayu said. "The princesses are still on your side, Dinky. Hopefully, some pony catches Sunbeam soon, so we can end this dark magic business for good." Dinky looked out the window at the stars. "Yeah, Scorpio's constellation is drawing closer. Every pony needs to be put on high alert, just in case." Clarity shrugged. "Even if he's out there now, he can't get in here. Let's not worry about it and get some sleep. Classes start again tomorrow." Dinky nodded. "Good plan. Night, girls." "Night," Clarity and Honeydew called. Dinky took one more glance at the stars, not aware that far below, a familiar, sinister pony was watching them from its hiding place in the trees. "Midsummer has passed. Yes, it has." Sunbeam hissed in satisfaction. "The night sky is shifting. The first star of her constellation has moved into view just above the horizon. Yes, it has. And with it, things will begin to become more difficult for little Dinky Doo." "Something is wrong." Dinky opened her eyes just a crack. Met with darkness, she cautiously opened them a bit wider. Was unable to make out anything around her. It must still be in the middle of the night, she realized, but something feels off. Dinky shifted her weight, and suddenly realized the surface beneath her was not her bed, but a cold floor that felt like stone. "Wait, that's not right. Where am I?" Dinky stood up, but hesitated to take a step. Everything around her was still pitch black. "Clarity, Honeydew," she called. Her voice echoed in the distance, much farther than it would have if it had still been Residence Tower. The filly waited for a moment, but received no response. After a moment's silence, she lit her horn, and gasped at the scene that lit up around her. It might have been possible to describe the room as a cave. It was, at the very least, a rough stone chamber carved out of the rock. However, the walls and floor seemed to be moving and shifting constantly, as if the stone were made of nothing more than mist. Dinky took a careful step, and a wave of fog radiated through the bizarre floor like a ripple on a shallow pool. However, ethereal as it looked, the floor beneath Dinky's hoof felt quite solid. Every surface in the room seemed to be reflecting the light from Dinky's horn, which was equally bizarre. Tinted blue, the irregular surface filled the room with a cyan glow. The filly looked left and right, trying to make sense of this strange place. Hello? Andy Pony? She yelled, starting to become frantic. What is this place? Somebody must be here. The sound of hoofs echoed again behind Dinky. She whirled around. A faint silhouette stood just beyond the reach of her light. Oh, thank goodness, she cried, galloping towards the other figure. I thought I was the only pony. Her light illuminated the other figure. She stopped abruptly, her host sliding against the strange floor, kicking up a cloud of mist. You! Sunbeam stood a dozen pony lengths away from the filly, staring, unmoving at Dinky. Strangely, the colt's body seemed to be shifting and changing constantly, while still retaining its form, just like the walls of the chamber. The frightening colt hesitated a moment more, as the sizing Dinky up, then broke into a wide grin. It's so kind of you to join me, Dinky Doo. Yes, it is, Sunbeam said, his voice just above a whisper. I knew I would meet you here sooner or later. Yes, I did. You've come to help me, just as I said you would. Haven't you? Dinky shook her head forcefully. No! I'll never help you with whatever you're doing. You don't have any power over me. I stopped using dark magic before you could begin to control me. Sunbeam raised an eyebrow. Oh, did you? I'm not so sure you know yourself as well as you think. No, I am not. The darkness that grew within you is not so easily smothered. You brought me here, didn't you? Dinky accused. Send me back to the academy right now, or... Sunbeam yarned. So sorry. Yes, I am. But there's nothing you could do, really. You can't even keep control over your own will, much less over me. Dinky stabbed the forehost so hard, the resulting ripple of mist almost reached the edges of the chamber. I am in control, you idiot! Sunbeam chuckled. I'm afraid not. Yes, I am. Look at your horn. Dinky rolled her eyes to glance up at her horn, gave a sharp gasp to see it surrounded by an angry black aura. She backed up, as if hoping to escape her own magic. You can't stop it, Sunbeam said. My plans are not going to fail. No, they are not. Stop fighting its power and submit. You will help me finally open. There was a brilliant flash of light, and a bang like a cannon blast. Dazed and briefly blinded, Dinky collapsed, blinking to try to clear her vision. Sunbeam cried out. Another set of hooves, sounding like they belonged to a bigger pony, echoed throughout the chamber. Get away! She must not slip away! No, she must not! Sunbeam growled. Wake up, girl. An unfamiliar voice said. I am awake, Dinky said, trying to get to her host despite her vision almost gone completely white. I didn't get knocked out. I just can't see. No, I mean this whole place is a dream. The stallion's voice said, but the dark magic is not. Now wake up, so I can't get into your head any worse. Wait, what? Dinky asked, bewildered and struggling to shut off her own horn. But, wait, who are you? There's no time. The newcomer grunted as another loud bang went off. Just wake up. Wake up. Wake up! Clarity's forehost slammed down on Dinky's stomach with all the force she could master. Dinky was quite painfully jarred from her sleep. She doubled over in her bed, coughing and clenching her gut. Dear Celestia, what's that for? She gasped, between desperate breaths. Your horn, Clarity cried. Dinky, turn off your magic now! Dinky forced one of her wandering eyes to open. To her horror, her horn was a golden black energy, as it had been in the dream. This time, however, she was able to extinguish the darker aura as soon as she willed it. Still taking shallow breaths to try and cover the wind Clarity had knocked up out of her, she slowly sat up. Clarity stood over her, concerned, and Honeydew stood back a few paces, trembling. I'm so sorry, Clarity apologized. You wouldn't wake up. You were mumbling and tossing, and your magic activated, and it turned all dark and... It's fine, Dinky said, still panting. I would have done the same thing. What happened? Honeydew squeaked. You didn't do that purposely, did you? Dinky shook her head. Of course not! I haven't used any of those spells since I almost burnt the tower down. So, why did it happen now? Clarity asked hesitantly, flattening her ears. I don't know, Dinky said, her voice quavering. I had a really vivid dream. Sunbeam was there, trying to bring out the darkness that he says is still inside me. I couldn't control my magic in that dream, and I guess when I generated the magic there, I must have generated here in real life. You couldn't control it? Honeydew repeated, frightened. But what does that mean is going to happen to you? If you really are slightly corrupted by dark magic, using more will only make it worse. I know, Dinky said, doing her best to remain calm. I think I was held by somebody, though. Somebody in the dream who kept me safe from Sunbeam's control. Princess Luna? Clarity asked. She patrols dreams. Maybe she fought off Sunbeam. No, this was a stallion, Dinky Karen. I never got a look at him, but he seemed to be on my side. Then he must have been part of the dream, Clarity concluded. No pony but Princess Luna can visit pony's dreams, right? Unless that was the real Sunbeam, somehow using my dreams to get to me. Dinky pointed. If he can get in, who knows? Maybe other ponies can too. Heidi shivered. I don't like this, she moaned, slumping into a seat. What if he really does find a way to get Dinky to use dark magic against her will? Let's not panic yet, Clarity said quickly. What we need is more information. Our textbooks don't have any, but there must be a book somewhere in Equestria that actually has useful information about dark magic. We can't fight it until we know what we're up against. If there is a book, it's probably well guarded, Dinky said. It would be something villains like us would be able to just pick out of the library. Clarity nodded. I guess you have a point. The only place that would have books like that would be the Canterlot Archives. Dinky's ears perked up. The Canterlot Archives? She parroted. Miss Twilight has a license to use the materials there for research. Maybe she could get us in. Clarity grinned. Dinky, you're a genius. We'll contact her tomorrow and see if she can take us there this weekend. What should we do in the meantime? Honeydew asked worriedly. Well, now I know to be wary, Dinky said resolutely. Hopefully this won't happen again, but if it does, I think I'll be able to force myself to wake up before anything bad happens. She rubbed her stomach. Wake me up again if you have to, but maybe you can find a less painful way to do it. Clarity grinned sheepishly. Yeah. Unsure of what to expect, the Philistines cautiously returned to their beds. Dinky eventually fell asleep again, and dreamed no more that night. Fortunately, there were no more incidents that week. In order to avoid another investigation, and another push for the Dean to get her expelled, Dinky decided to keep her brief lapse into dark magic to herself, in the hopes that it had been an isolated event. She did promise herself, and her friends, that she would report the event to Twilight, or to the princesses if it ever happened again. Dinky did, however, tell Twilight about the latest run-in with Sunbeam. It was able easy to use that as an excuse to ask for Twilight's aid to get into the Canterlot Archives, so she could learn more about dark magic. That Saturday, she and Clarity hopped onto the train for the short ride to Canterlot, where Twilight said she would be waiting for them. So, what exactly are the Canterlot Archives for? Dinky asked as the train chugged along the mountain path toward the capital city. I get the feeling this place is not a normal library. Clarity shook her head. No, the archives are the place where intelligence is stored. A lot of it is just boring records and stuff. But it's all guarded to some degree, since a lot of it is sensitive information. But police files can't be the only thing stored there, right? Dinky asked. I mean, we wouldn't be going there if they were. Of course not, Clarity said. It's a place with a lot of information that is considered important to the continued safety of the smooth operation of Equestria. A lot of it is totally harmless, but some of it is dangerous. How do you know all that? Dinky asked, raising an eyebrow. Clarity smirked. How do you think? Listen has a special permit to access certain parts of the archives. Certain ponies require a license to some of it, but it requires lots of paperwork, and even then, they have to confirm that the pony plans to use the information for valid research purposes, and that the archives are the only way to get research information they need. Dinky nodded. Well, Twilight just uses it for advanced magical studies, she admitted. But I guess that is the kind of what we're doing, so she should be able to help. I know we've heard her mention having access to a certain archive named after Star Swirl. Clarity's jaw dropped. Twilight has access to the Star Swirl the Bearded Wing, she asked incredulously. Do you even know how important you have to be to get in there? Even Lucy can only dream of being allowed in that place. I don't think most of the professors at school have access. Well, Twilight does, so as long as we stay with her, we'll be too, Dinky said proudly. Clarity rubbed her foreheads together gleefully. Oh man, Lucy's gonna be so jealous. The train soon arrived at Canterlot, and the filly stepped off. Clarity spied Twilight standing just beyond the platform, and she and Dinky quickly trotted over to her. Hello, girls, Twilight greeted. It's great to see you two again. I wish it were because of happier circumstances than these unfortunate dark magic concerns, though. Dinky nodded. Well, if there's one thing you taught me, Miss Twilight, is that knowing about something is the best way to be prepared to handle it. Right, Twilight said, grinning. I've never actually researched dark magic myself, but there are still a small number of books in the archives that talk about its history and how it works. Usually, I wouldn't advocate looking into this stuff, but considering what's been going on with that strange cult, I think a little more background will probably do us all some good. Maybe we can figure out what's going on at that school. Dinky says he could get us into the Star Swirl the Bearded Wing, Clarity said excitedly. Is that really true? It is, but we're not going to the archives to browse, Twilight said levelly. We're going to look for information that may be relevant to dark magic, and that's all. Clarity saluted. Understood. Let's go. The Canterlot archives were not far from the royal castle. The building looked so similar, with its white curving walls and purple and yellow spires, that Dinky mistook it for part of the castle itself for a moment. Two tough-looking guards, armed with spears, guarded the main gate, but intimidating though they were, they smiled when Twilight approached. Afternoon, Twilight, one of the guards said cheerfully. Got some research to take care of? Yes, it's a matter of great importance, Twilight replied. I brought these two fillies along. Neither of them has a license on their own, but I'll be keeping them with me at all times while we're inside. The other guard laughed. Ha ha ha! We know you know the rules, Twilight, he said, pulling the lever to open the front gate. Hope you three find what you're looking for. Twilight thanked the guard and stepped into the building, listening for Dinky and Clarity to follow. Even though it was close to midday, the interior of the building was quite dim. Windows were few and far between, while most of the light in the hallways provided by torches. The stone ceilings were arched, supported by columns, and shields and tapestries lined the hallway walls. Dinky looked left and right. In both directions, a set of heavy wooden doors occurred at regular intervals, each with a nameplate above it, and many with guards persistent in front. This is so exciting, Clarity said, struggling to keep her voice down. Which one is the Star Swirl Wing? Ours is upstairs, Twilight said, turning right and trotting down the hallway. You'll probably know it when you see it. Silently, Dinky and Clarity followed Twilight to the end of the hall and up a tight stone stairwell. Dinky glanced at the second-floor hallway as they passed, which looked nearly identical to the first. Upon arriving at their destination, the third floor, it quickly became apparent that every part of the archives looked the same. However, Dinky soon noticed that one archive in the middle of the hallway that was different. Instead of wooden doors, the room was blockaded with heavy iron bars and a large, intimidating lock. A huge disc, carved out of some aqua-colored gem, and engraved with stars in a spiral pattern, hung above the entrance, and a guard stood diligently just outside. Good afternoon, Twilight called as the ponies approached the stallion's sentry. My guest and I would like to enter the Star Swirl the Bearded Wing, please. The stallion nodded. License, please, he said gruffly. I know it's you, Twilight, but you can't afford to be too careful, especially when guests involved. You know how it goes. Twilight retrieved a small card stamped with the royal seal from her saddlebag. The guard took a glance, nodded curtly, and used his magic to unlock the door. As soon as the three ponies had entered, it clanged shut behind them again. Dinky took a few cautious steps forward and took her in surroundings, amazed.
Yes, definitely isn't any old library,
she mumbled, getting only an odd nod from Clarity in reply. The star-swirled bearded ring was a roughly circular room, with bookshelves forming a network of hallways all around the perimeter. The shelves were not organized in a way a typical library was. Dinky was surprised to see books shoved in odd angles, or stacked horizontally on top of vertical rows. Scrolls were piled on tables and scattered in the empty spaces on the shelves. In the center of the room, a domed skylight illuminated the enormous hourglass, slowly depositing its sand from its upper chamber into the lower one. Well, here we are, Twilight said slowly. This place isn't like the magic section at most equestrian libraries. There are spells and histories in here that have otherwise been totally forgotten to pony kind, and it's in every pony's best interest if we keep it that way. We'll split up to try and find the book, so I'm going to trust you two with something important. If you see a book or scroll with a tile that has nothing to do with dark magic, leave it be, okay?
Okay,
Dinky and Clarity said in unison. Twilight smiled. Good. Now let's see what we can find. Twilight set out down towards the aisles, and Dinky and Clarity trotted out into the next one over. The whole chamber was fairly dim, but Dinky was still able to make out some tiles in the books.
Golem Tentacle Guide, Volume 3. Employing a hive-mind system in your stone army.
She read aloud, surprised at the dangerous sighting tile.
That doesn't sound like a book we need.
That one's not even that bad. Clarity laughed, glancing around through a hole full of scrolls as he pulled off the nearest shelf. Here's a treatise on manticore poisons. Oh, an abyssal summoning and binding spells, a Marian's addiction. And, let's not forget, Elemental Emotions Part 4, Users and Dangers of Presenting Soulfire. Dinky blinked.
I don't even want to know what those are about,
she said, shuddering and tossing a worn copy of A Dissertation on the Potential of Magical Backfire Caused by Solar Radiation.
Let's try another aisle.
Philly surrounded the corner and carefully examined another shelf of books. Dinky was just about to move on when one tile caught her eye. She lifted it up and examined it carefully.
Dark Arcana. Physical and mental effects of dark magical corruption.
That looks perfect, Clarity exclaimed, giving a triumphant little hop. Let's call Twilight so we can...
Hush! Not just yet,
Dinky said quietly, putting a forehold to Clarity's lips.
Let's take a look at ourselves first. Twilight doesn't know about what happened last week, remember?
Oh yeah, Clarity said, nodding. Although, if this book says something about it that proves dangerous, we should probably bring it up to her.
Of course,
Dinky said quickly.
Come on, let's check first.
She set the book on a small, wobbly desk at the end of the aisle and flipped it open to a random page.
Chapter 6. Regarding Corruption Irreversibility Thresholds.
She quietly read aloud.
With continuous use of dark magic, a pony will eventually pass a tipping point, where the mind becomes so prone to excessive dark magic that further corruption is self-perpetuating. At this point, barring an immediate intervention involving the forced seizing on the unicorn's ability to use magic via magically disabling, or, in some severe cases, severing the horn, the magic user will descend into total mental corruption. The conscience is eradicated and replaced with only the desires for personal power and suffering of others.
Clarity cleared her throat. The pony has to be displaying noticeable signs of personality change before that happens, right? She asked nervously.
I think so,
Dinky answered.
But Twilight and I used a little enough dark magic that I probably won't need to worry. I'm sure Sunbeam has passed this threshold, though.
Clarity nodded. Keep reading. Dinky turned back to the book.
Dark magic also has a physical corrupting aspect. The corrupted individual ceases to be a regular pony as the magic infiltrates their body. Much like the mind, this process has a tipping point. Both the mind and body reach a point of no return at the same time. A unicorn who has become virtually corrupted with dark magic undergoes horrific mental and physical changes. No longer correctly called a pony, These creatures are known as wraiths.
But Sunbeam looks like any other pony, doesn't he? Clarity asked. Does that mean he's not beyond the point of no return? Dinky shrugged and continued.
A wraith is a strange and dangerous creature, with a body warped by magical corruption. Wraiths resemble unicorns, but their coat and main colors are typically gray to black. The whites of their eyes often colored. Dark magic has a profound effect on the horn, easily curving or twisting it in unusual ways. The most significant power of a wraith, besides their magic, is the ability to destabilize. Their body structure has been so weakened by dark magic that they are capable of shedding a form entirely and becoming an amorphous cloud of darkness. They are capable of recreating their solid form again at will. Many wraiths can take advantage of this undefined form to reassemble the powers of the pony they once were, making them especially dangerous as deceivers.
Dinky stopped reading for a moment.
This sounds awfully familiar, she murmured. Let me check something.
Dinky briefly checked the contents of the book, then turned to a different chapter. After scanning the page for a moment, she found what she was looking for and quietly began to read again.
King Samra was one of the more notable wraiths to influence equestrian history. His rise to power, 60 years before the banishment of Luna, was dramatic. Using dark magic, he was able to enslave the Crystal Empire in northern Equestria, which he held control for a number of years, until he was finally sealed within the earth by Princess Celestia and Princess Luna.
That name is familiar, Clarity agreed. King Sombra only recently returned to the surface. We learned about the Crystal Heart in the Magical Artifacts class, familiar? That was how they stopped him. Dinky nodded.
So, a single pony could become that powerful just via dark magic, huh?
She asked.
If Sunbeam really is a wraith like King Samra, somebody needs to do something about it soon.
Girls! Called Twilight from somewhere else in the archive. Any luck yet?
Not yes, Miss Twilight,
Dinky called back. Well, keep looking, Twilight called. I know there are a few books on the topic here somewhere. Dinky and Clarity exchanged a glance. Yes, a quick peek to see if we can find anything about dealing with slight corruption. And then we go straight to Twilight. Clarity whispered. Agreed.
Agreed.
Dinky turned to the relevant page and began to read.
Chapter 4. Effects of reversible degrees of dark magic corruption and strategies for doing so. After a pony has fairly significant exposure to dark magic, the body will cease to resist casting the spells. It is at this juncture that a pony can first be considered corrupted. This state is reversible and corruption will fade if the use of spells has ceased. However, completely sorting out dark magic after corruption often proves difficult depending on the pony, the degree of corruption, and other factors. Even if the pony is able to resist continued practice of dark spells under normal circumstances, other stimuli may make the stimulating magic resurface. Most notable is direct, localized exposure to dark spells or objects imbued with dark energy. The time of year also plays a role, as Scorpio's constellation not only increases the potency of dark magic, but also aggravates it within ponies who may have been otherwise dormant. This effect is still most intense in Scorpio's apex on the 7th of November, but has some degree of effect as long as some part of Scorpio is in the sky, up to 3 months before and after the date.
August 7th arrived while we were on Midsummer holiday, Clarity realized. Does this mean that burst of magic that affected your dreams was an effect of Scorpio?
Probably,
Dinky said nervously.
We'll see what else it says.
She turned the page and picked it up again.
Presence of Scorpio in the sky is not an impossible factor for corrupted ponies to overcome, especially if the degree of corruption is low. Most ponies might not experience any effects at all. If they do, continued vigilance of oneself is usually sufficient to prevent unwanted episodes of dark magic. Dark magic may attempt to surface in highly stressful situations, such as occasionally in dreams, and in cases it is useful to have a non-corrupt pony nearby to help the corrupted get a hold of his or herself before dark magic is used in enough access to further corruption. After a year or two of successful avoidance of excessive dark magic during Scorpio's presence in the sky, the corruption will fade to the point that the constellation's presence will no longer be a concern.
Dinky reached the end of the section and closed the book with a sigh.
So, that's what it is. Sunbeam must be betting on Scorpio to finish the job.
That seems like a pretty risky move on his part, Clardy said, raising an eyebrow. He seems convinced that he messed you up enough with dark magic that he's going to win in the end. But it doesn't sound like Scorpio is too big of a deal if you're careful.
Dinky nodded somnously. Either way, we should tell the Pegasus about Wraiths of Twilight, she suggested. Your information could be useful at catching him at least.
Determined to overcome the influence of the dark constellation, Dinky grabbed a book and tried it off in search of Twilight. So, have you had any more dark dreams lately? Clardy asked under her breath.
Dinky shook her head. Not yet, she said proudly. I had one where I found myself in that same weird place, when I woke myself up before anything bad could happen.
Clardy smiled and offered Dinky a huff bump. Great! Sounds like you got things under control, at least for now. About a week had passed since the Phillies' trip to the Canterlot Archives, and Dinky had taken the advice of the Dark Arcana book to heart. Spending only a few minutes actively closing her mind to dark magic, lurking within her mind had helped her through several nights without further intrusions into her dreams. Of course, Dinky and Clardy had also shown Twilight to Pegasus the bookhead about Wraiths, and though Twilight doubted a creature as powerful as a Wraith was hiding on the Academy grounds, she did send word of the theory to the princesses, just in case. Dinky had no further word on the topic. Now it was Friday again. The two fillies were preparing Professor Flux to arrive and begin their transformation and conjuring class. The students husked as the stern stallion marched in, carrying an unfamiliar book in his aura. He dropped it off forcefully on his desk, to the attention of the few students who hadn't noticed his entrance.
Good news,
Professor Flux said gruffly.
We're starting from scratch today. As I'm sure many of you notice, this class is called Transformation and Conjuring, and though we're nearly 3/4 of the way through the term, we explored only the first of these two topics. Time to start on the second.
He tried to the front of his desk.
Define conjuring,
he commanded. Not surprisingly, Clardy raised her hoof. Conjuring is using magic to bring an object into existence from nothing, she recited. Professor Flux frowned.
Not quite from nothing. Be more specific,
he said. Clardy bit her lip. I guess technically you can't just create new matter. So it's more like assembling whole objects from surrounding particles. So it seems like it came from nothing?
Much better,
the professor said, nodding.
Merely by its definition, I'm sure it's obvious that conjuring spells are some of the hardest for unicorns to perform. The amount of magic and degree of focus required to make an object to materialize from microscopic component particles. It works in a way like transformation spells, but vastly more complicated. Since this is a first-term class, there will be very little conjuring skill for you. But at least we're going to learn the basics. Before we begin, I have to ask, does anyone know the single class of objects that cannot be conjured?
No, Pony. Not even Clardy had an answer this time. So after a few moments of silence, the professor answered himself.
It's not possible to conjure a living being, he explained. Unlike objects, living beings are dynamic. It can't just be assembled from respective chemicals.
Dinky raised her hoof.
But, Professor, I've seen my tutor use magic to make small creatures like parasites appear,
she mentioned.
How is that possible if creatures can't be conjured?
Professor Flux gave a rare smile.
Good observation,
he said, with another approving nod.
Some ponies can appear to be conjuring living things. In reality, they are summoning, which is an entirely different type of magic, closely related to teleportation, in which a creature or object is brought to the magic user from another location. Professor Morningstar might teach you about summoning in a year or two.
He stopped speaking for a moment, and scowled.
Speaking of summoning, it occurs to me that the princess lifted Nestor's probation yesterday. I suppose I ought to bring him in here, just so he can get back to his job.
The professor's horn glowed, and a bright light flashed in the center of the room, quickly vanishing and leaving in its place a dripping, sudsy changeling. Nestor quickly whirled around, startled and confused, while Professor Flux put a hoof to his forehead and grumbled. What's the big idea, Fluxy? Nestor asked, arching his back and shaking off most of the suds, was drifted onto the desk of several nearby students. Can't a changeling even take a shower in pieces these days?
Professor Flex grimaced. Nestor, your probation is over, he growled. You need to be available during work hours again, remember?
Oh, fine,
Nestor sighed, quickly transforming rapidly between a pony and a changeling, taking advantage of the brief blast of warmth the transformation produced to effectively dry his carapace.
I was about done anyway.
He turned to the class and gave a faint smile.
Hey, Colts and Phillies, good news. No more listening to boring old Professor Flux all day. Your favorite teaching assistant is back to stay.
The changeling buzzed his wings happily, and the students cheered for him. Dinky took the opportunity to whisper again.
I'm going to talk to Nestor after class. I owe him a bit of an apology anyway.
Cardi nodded. Works for me. There's something I want to ask him about, too.
Dinky raised an eyebrow.
What's that?
She asked. Cardi winked. You'll see.
Conjuring proved as every bit as difficult as Professor Floyce had implied.
Clarity had not managed a successful spell by the end of class. But Dinky, to her own surprise as well as Clarity's, had been able to follow the professor's demonstration well enough to conjure up a small scrap of paper. In and of itself, it was an utterly uninteresting object. But Professor Flux seemed quite impressed all the same. Dinky and Clarity waited until the other students left before approaching Nestor. The changeling took one look at Dinky. Probably backed up so far, he wound up casting sideways against the wall. Hello, he said apprehensively.
Hi, Nestor.
Dinky grinned.
Can we talk?
Nestor shook his head frankly. I didn't do anything, I swear, he said in a panic. I just got off probation. Whatever your problem is, it couldn't have been me. Dinky was shocked by the changeling's response. He was a creature she had been terrified when they first met, now cowering in the corner where the wall met the ceiling, like an oversized bug fearing being squashed.
No, it's nothing like that,
she said soothingly.
I just want to talk to you. I'm not trying to get you in trouble, I promise.
Nestor vibrated his wings, producing a long chirp. Well, there's another class using this as a room in a minute. Meet me at my pod if you really have something to say, he said. It's in the cellar beneath this tower. Bit dark, too. Might want to light those horns. The changeling nodded curtly and scabbled away before the girls could reply.
Are we even allowed here?
Dinky whispered. The door wasn't exactly guarded or anything, Clarity said, kicking aside a cobweb that draped over the step. Then again, it's not exactly a place that seems too hospitable. Dinky frowned.
You don't think Nestor has the malicious reason to ask us to come down here, do you?
Clarity shook her head. Nah, Nestor seemed a little upset upstairs, but I've never gotten a mean vibe off of him, even though he's a changeling, she stated. Besides, Nestor wouldn't try anything right after getting off probation. Dinky didn't reply. Clarity waved a hoof in front of her face.
Clarity, look,
Dinky mumbled, pointing. Clarity turned, and both Phillies stared at the unhealthy object taking up most of the cellar. Easily 4 pony lengths tall, the egg-shaped blob was primarily black and crusting on the outside. But slightly luminescent green fluid oozed from hundreds of tiny cracks in the exterior. Stretchy cables of the same green gunk tethered the pod to the ceiling, so that the bottom of it dangled a short distance above the floor. Well, we found Nestor's pod, Clarity said finally. At the mention of his name, Nestor himself crawled around the exterior hanging from the structure behind. He paused a moment to cover one of the larger cracks with a sticky secretion, then turned and gave the Phillies a somewhat nervous grin. So, you came to visit after all, huh? He asked, in his usual insultory rasp. Come around the other side of the pod, and we can chat. He whispered again. Dinky and Clarity exchanged a glance and trotted around the back of Nestor's strange home. The back of the pod looked much the same as the front, except for a large gash near the base. Nestor beckoned the girls from one of his desks. Well, come on in, he said slowly. It's not as gross in here as the pod looks on the outside, I promise. Dinky hesitated a moment, then cautiously lifted a hoof and stepped into the crevice. The inside of the pod was very dim, It glowed with the same green light that the changeling moon gave off, but the floor itself was made of spongy yet solid material that was easy to walk on and not messy at all. Clarity followed Dinky into the pod, and the whole thing sank a few inches under their combined weight. Nestor seemed unconcerned. Nestor appeared not to be much for interior design. The pod held a small wooden table and a shelf upon which several books about transformation magic rested. The rest of the odd oval space was bare, making the small chamber seem a bit bigger. Wait, this place is bigger on the inside? Yes. Good old British technology. So, what's up? Nestor asked, letting his crest droop as low as possible. You haven't come back to yell at me again.
No, the opposite. I come to apologize,
Dinky said. Nestor chirped, but said nothing.
I was wrong,
Dinky continued.
I'm not afraid to admit it. You weren't the one who was spying on me. You've never been out to get me, and I still believed you. I made a mistake, and I'm really sorry.
Nestor's big blue eyes remained fixed on the filly. I'm glad you figured that out, he said finally. I suppose no harm was done. After all, I was put on probation because of the dark magic incident, not because of you reporting me. Technically, that was also your fault, but it wasn't directly at me, so... The changeling trailed off and lifted his wings softly a few times. I understand, of course, that you were scared of me when we met, he continued. Heck, every pony was, after what happened with Her Majesty Queen Chrysalis in Canterlot last year. I don't blame any pony for that in the slightest. He hung his head. But what you have to understand is that it's just as scary for me. How would you feel if every pony you ever met wanted to kill you? The only safe place you could find was in a changeling hive. Dinky shuddered.
That's not a good comparison, though. I don't think a pony will last very long in a changeling hive.
Nestor chirped again. They would, if Her Majesty granted them amnesty in exchange for service, he corrected. But there would be suspicion and uncertainty among the changelings, for sure. He sighed. That's what it's like for me. The changelings want me dead, and a school full of ponies with more magic power than I have is the only place I can be safe. So you have to understand, when a pony threatens to report me to Celestia, it's just like a changeling reporting a pony in her hive to Her Majesty Queen Chrysalis. It's absolutely terrifying. Nestor sat down and stared at the floor, looking miserable. Dinky had never seen such an intimidating creature reduced to such a state. She gave Clarity a pleading glance, but the great filly just pointed to the changeling and nodded. Almost silently, Dinky stepped forward and put a forehoof on the gloomy changeling's shoulder.
I never thought about it that way,
She admitted.
I should have been more sensitive. Guess I was looking for some pony to blame me. You just happened to be, well, convenient.
Nestor nodded. Well, no harm done, really, he said, meeting Dinky's gaze and getting a sheepish frank grin. I was allowed to teach for a while, but Celestia certainly made sure I wasn't treated cruelly. And no evidence against me was found, so as long as students continue to like me as a teaching assistant, I should be fine. You're doing a great job, by the way, Clarity added. Professor Felix is smart, but his personality's a little dry. Our transformation class was so boring while you were on probation. Every pony's thrilled to have you back.
Definitely,
Dinky said, twisting her tail delightedly.
So, how about it, Nestor? Do you accept my apology?
Nestor made a series of click. Instead, Dinky assumed was a chuckle as he stood back up. Yeah, all right, he answered. Thanks for being so understanding. I'm just glad you ponies are competent enough to learn to see past what I am and look at who I am instead. The changeling used a cratered foreleg to ruffle Dinky's mane affectionately, then turned to Clarity. So, he said in a more comfortable, essential tone, What was it that you wanted to ask me? Oh, that, Clardy said nonchalantly. I just had a question about transformation magic that we didn't cover in class. Nestor practiced in place. And you wanted to ask me rather than Professor Flux? I'm flattered, he said, making a face that Dinky felt sure would have been accompanied by a blush, were it not for the hard black cuticle covering his body. What's the question? Well, I like to dabble in illusions, Clardy explained. And there's one thing that's true about all illusions, that there's always a way to see through them, if you're perceptive enough to pick up on light distortions. I was wondering, do transformations also leave some kind of hallmark to make it possible for other ponies to realize they're looking for a fake? Oh, interesting, Nestor said, tapping his chin thoughtfully. Transformations, as I'm sure you remember, involve a physical change, not an illusion. So, the method of spotting a fake is different. As far as I know, there's always one trait, not even a tiny one, that doesn't accurately reflect what the transformer has tried to become. For instance, when I turn into a unicorn, my magic is still acid green, and there's nothing I can do about it. Cardi leaned forward, picking her ears up expectantly. So, all transformations have an imperfection, something that doesn't look like the original? Right, Nestor said, nodding. That one detail can and will vary, though. Only a really perceptive pony will be able to pick it out. He skidded over to Clarity and gave her mane a ruffle like he had with Dinky's. If any pony around here would have a knack for that sort of thing, though, it's you, kiddo. Clarity smiled and playfully nuzzled Nestor. This time, Dinky was convinced that the changeling did blush, which he hadn't thought was possible. So, while we're on topic, Clarity said slowly, I have another question. I don't know if you'll know anything about it, though. Nestor flicked his tired tail indignantly. Oh, won't I? Try me. Clarity paused a moment before continuing. I've heard of a type of creature that wields transformation magic, she said cautiously. Do you know anything about rapes? All at once, Nestor's jovial, teasing attitude famously spoke. Stunned, he backed up several paces. Oh, no, no, he mumbled, looking between Dinky and Clarity obviously. I don't know where you heard about rapes, but I just can't talk about that. There wouldn't even be an investigation. If word got out that I talked to Villies about rapes, I'd never even be allowed in the vicinity of Canterlot again. Okay, Clarity said, holding up her forepaws out placatingly, as he tried to calm the panicking changeling. It's not important. I'll never bring up again, I promise. Nestor sighed relief. Good. It's not just for my sake either. You two want to keep yourselves out of trouble. You get as far away from anything that has to do with raids as you can. No, Dinky said with a sheepish smile. I guess we'll be going now. See you next week, Nestor. Nestor winked feebly and breathed a long, concerned sigh as the fillies climbed out of the pod. As the month wore on, Dinky found herself paying closer attention to the stars. Leo's reigning period ended in late August, and Virgo took her place, bringing Scorpio's stars more fully to view. Worryingly, this had the exact effect Dinky had feared. The dark magic's attempts to resurface through her dreams were becoming more frequent. Dinky knew that soon it was likely she'd end up bringing forth dark magic in her sleep, and would have to talk to Twilight or Princess Celestia or Luna for her own safety. Clarity and Honeydew checked in on her regularly, but she continued to manage to banish the dangerous signs as soon as she recognized them. Dinky had other things to occupy her during the day, though. Sparkle, for instance, had not been quite the same ever since the day she joined Dinky and her friends in the enchantments class. The overseer seemed, it was even possible, even more guarded, as if, or so Clarity theorized, she was terrified of opening up a bit again, as she had on that day. However, although Sparkler still kept to herself whenever possible, her mean streak seemed to have slowed. Rather than greeting Dinky and her friends with grumpy remarks or threats of detention, she now opted to simply give them their space, saying nothing more than a muttered hello, even on the best of days. Unsure of what else they could say, The friends usually kept quiet around the older filly. There was, however, one pony that continued to try to reach Sparkler inside her antisocial cell, and Dinky and the other foals couldn't help but notice whenever he did. One afternoon, Dinky and the others were on their way to a second-floor passage when they heard familiar voices coming from the courtyard below. They peeked out the open window. Excuse me. Hello? Candy Floss? I got a mission for your shipping and handling surfaces. Oh, come on, Sparkler. Presto said urgently, following Sparkler across the gardens in front of the castle. I'm not even trying to take you anywhere. I just figured we could save time and get lunch while we go over the latest orders from the Dean. You have to eat, don't you? There's nothing to discuss, Sparkler said, refusing to meet her colleague's gaze. The Dean's latest updates to the rules were clear. Just enforce them for the Colts while I do for the fillies, and everything will be fine. Good day! She began to trot away, grating his teeth in frustration. Presto grabbed the filly's tail with magic, and yanked her back where she stood next to him, ignoring her cry of protest. Sparkler, listen to me, he said sternly, leaning forward until his snout practically met hers. I get it. You're smart enough to know that we don't actually have to talk about the Dean's stuff. Sparkler snorted. Exactly. So what's your deal? Presto sighed. Sparkler, I think you need some help. You don't attend any activities. You don't hang out with friends. You don't talk to any pony anymore except to discipline them. You're retreating deeper and deeper to your own brooding. It's just, well, not healthy! Sparkler rolled her eyes. Oh, please, she grumbled. Why should I bother? I'm not humoring any pony. I know no pony wants to talk to me. Well, I do! Presto yelled, catching the younger man by surprise. I've known you for ages, and I refuse to let you do this to yourself because you think every pony's out to get you. Why can't you see that you are the one that's making your life miserable? There were a few seconds of stunned silence, and then, to the great surprise of both Presto and the foals fighting from above, Sparkler's eyes filled with tears. Presto backpedaled immediately. Oh, what am I? Sparkler, you know I didn't mean... Stop! Sparkler commanded, holding back his job. Just stop! Go back to your tower! Do your overseer duty! And for Celestia's sake, leave me alone! Knowing better than to try to comfort Sparkler, Presto hung his head and quickly complied. He teleported away, leaving Sparkler standing alone. Even from her high vantage point, Dinky could see a few tears hit the gravel beneath the overseer's hooves. Even Presto, the young man mumbled, taking a long, shuddering sigh. Why do I have to do this to him? If he'd just keep away from me, he wouldn't get caught up all this. I'm telling him that for his own good. Sparkler wiped her eyes with a forehoof and briskly trotted away, leaving the 4 holes in the hallway above alone. What just happened? Scuffle asked finally. I don't know, Dinky admitted. Certainly didn't end well, though. I've never seen Presto get so frustrated, and I've definitely never seen Sparkler cry. I know she's not very nice, but I'm a little worried for Sparkler, Honeydew said, shuffling a hoof on the carpet. Presto's right. She behaves more like a machine than a pony nowadays. Well, up until the end, Dinky added. What do you think she meant when she said she's pushing Presto away to help both of them? Clarity surprisingly gave a tiny grin. Well, it's already kind of obvious that Presto cares about Sparkler. Maybe, even likes her, she began. But I'm starting to wonder if, in reality, she's got a thing for him, too. Honeydew raised an eyebrow. I don't see how that makes any sense, she said slowly. She wants nothing to do with him, doesn't she? That's what it seems like, Clarity said, her excitement growing. But she always seems to get more emotional, for better or for worse, when he's around. And you heard what she said, right? Why do I have to do this to him? It's as if the reason Sparkler's upset is because she actually does like Presto. But whatever else is going on in this strange little head of hers is compelling her to push her away. I know I'd be upset if I felt I needed to treat a potential special sub-pony like dirt every time he talked to me. I don't know, Scuffle said skeptically. I'm no expert on love, but that seems a little far-fetched. Yeah, Scuffle, I mean, it's not like sometimes when 2 ponies care about each other really, really enough, They have no idea how to say it, and they're really embarrassed to start talking to each other. So thus, they start moving on to other emotions, like saying arguing with each other every chance they get. Ha! Skull! Cardi shrugged. It's just a guess.
Well, even if you're right, we still don't know exactly why Sparkle needs to distance herself from every pony.
Dinky pointed out.
If we can answer that one question, we could probably explain everything she does.
I still vote we let her deal with it herself. We've all been mixed up with Sparkle before. It never ends well. Dinky sighed.
I guess you're right,
she said somberly.
Sometimes there just isn't a good way to get through to somebody like that.
Quietly, Dinky led her friends away from the window, wondering just what it was that had left the overseer in such a state. Mist. Again, Dinky was surrounded by mist, and again she knew what was going to happen. A quick illumination spell revealed the same blue, reflected chamber she had seen several times before. It stretched on in one direction toward total darkness, where she figured Sunbeam was raiding.
Just another thing,
Philly thought, somewhat less concerned than she had been the last few times.
Better wake myself up before Sunbeam shows up.
Footsteps echoed in the darkness nearby.
Sorry, Sunbeam,
she called mockingly.
I don't have time to play today. See ya!
The filly snickered as she willed herself to awaken. The hostess vanished, as did the strange cave. Proud of herself, Dinky opened her eyes. This time, however, she didn't awaken in her bed, or in the residence tower. Instead, she found herself lying on past a thick moss in the middle of a dense growth of trees.
Wait, what?
She asked aloud, still groggy. Rubbing her eyes, she stood and looked around. Only moonlight lit the area, and with the shade of the trees, there was very little of that. But instead of the vague lines and muffled sounds of her dream world, everything here was worryingly sharp and clear, even in the dim light. Dinky took a few steps, trying to orient herself. She recognized the area. She was in the forest outside the castle, a short walk from her hideout.
But how did I get here? She wondered. When I went to sleep, I was in the tower.
Confused, are we? A voice asked. Dinky looked widely around, quickly spied two glimmering blue eyes, connecting to something hidden just out of sight in the darkness. Although she needed no further identification, she lay her horn for a better view, and sure enough, found herself staring at the not-drained sunbeam. You've got a surprisingly strong mind, Dinky. Yes, you do, Sunbeam said, smiling. I thought it'd be easy to take advantage of those dreams of yours. But so far, your resilience is proving surprising. Yes, it is.
So it was you, Dinky snarled. You should bring me out here somehow. Send me back right now.
Relax, Dinky Doo, Sunbeam hissed. You're no danger tonight. No, you are not. Why would I hurt the one pony who can help me with my plans, anyway? Dinky refused to show fear.
You know what? I'm tired of hearing that, she said defiantly. I'm sick of your bills and guessing games, Sunbeam. I'm not leaving until I get some answers.
Sunbeam chuckled darkly. I do so love how you act like you could still win this. Yes, I do. Ask away, and I'll answer whatever I see fit. The colt sat down on the moss, looking expectantly at Dinky with his big blue eyes, wagging his bright orange tail playfully. Dinky found it unnerving that such an evil pony could look so harmless.
Let's start with the obvious, Dinky began harshly. How did I get inside? I was asleep in my own bed until just a few moments ago.
I brought you here. Yes, I did. Sunbeam said matter-of-factly. You've been doing strangely well, trying to resist the dark magic. All fruitless in the end, yes it is. But an interesting display of will nonetheless. I decided it was time for us to chat, so I could show you just how small your hopes of resisting me really are.
Oh, really? Dinky said icily. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. For now, answer me something I've been wondering for a long time.
For a second, she took the harsh edge of her speech and flattened her ears against her head.
What do you mean exactly? Out of all the ponies, why did you trick me into learning dark magic?
A boring answer to an interesting question, really. Sunbeam said dully. You were filled with great talent, yet little knowledge of the path I was leading you down. Yes, you were. A shame, I suppose, for you. But on the upside, you're doing exactly what I want quite nicely, so far.
Dinky frowned. Well, for the point of view of the bad guy, at least I can understand that one, she grumbled. But so far, all I know is that you decided to teach me forbidden, evil magic in secret, so I can help you fulfill your grand plan or whatever. When do I get to hear about the crazy evil thing you somehow think I'm going to do?
Sunbeam laughed, although the sound was more disconcerting than mirthful. Oh, I just need an assistant to help me with one small spell. Yes, I do. He chuckled. If I were to tell you about it, though, it'd ruin all the fun.
Dinky snorted. Then what did you want to tell me? Why drag me out here in the middle of the night if you're not going to give me any more information?
To give you a taste of what to expect, Sunbeam answered less cordially. As you no doubt notice, your dark magic is resurfacing on its own. Yes, it is. Do you know why?
Scorpio.
Dinky pointed at the sky. Very good. Yes, you are. Scorpio's time at the top of the sky is but 2 months away. And as she draws closer, her power increases in me as well as in you.
Well, I can still fight it, Dinky said. I'm not a wraith yet, and as long as I can resist the dark magic until Scorpio leaves the night sky, I'll never be one.
Sunbeam raised his eyebrows. You know about race? He asked incredulously. Some pony's been doing her homework. Yes, she has.
Of course I know about race, Dinky snapped. I still don't know why, but it doesn't take a genius to tell you tried to turn me into one. But I caught on before it was too late.
Oh, no, you did not, Sunbeam cued. Perhaps you stopped before I could turn you a wraith on my own. But Scorpio's influence will make it possible for me to finish the job. Yes, it will. I may have been able to corrupt you further. I first invaded your dreams, if not for that troublesome stallion who helped awakening you.
Dinky blinked. So, he wasn't part of the dream either? Then who was he?
It doesn't matter! No, it does not! Sunbeam said, dancing suddenly and snarling as he pressed his nose against Dinky's, causing her to rapidly back away. The point is, he cannot always be there to help you, and, strong though your will is, you cannot continue to resist Scorpio as long as I am there to fan the flames. The longer you fight, the harder it will become. Dinky was backed against a tree as the colt continued to push her. She gasped as black light surrounded his horn. I swear, yes I do, by the time Scorpio reigns over the sky, you will serve the purpose of darkness. Yes, you will. Wham! Before she even knew what he was doing, Dinky punched the advancing colt across the face as hard as her small forehoof could allow. Sunbeam's horn went out as he reeled, stepping back a few paces and clutching his already swelling nose. Fine, he said, his voice still muffled uneasily.
Run back to your friends, tell your professors and princesses all about this. It won't do you any good. No, it won't. Oh, but it will be fun to watch you try.
He dove into the brush. Dinky gave chase, but by the time she pulled back the first bush, Sunbeam was already no more than a black shape, darting off into the deeper darkness.